Okay, we'll be getting started here shortly. Sorry about the delay there. Let me pull up my slides. Okay, we'll be getting started here shortly. Sorry about the delay there. Let me pull up my slides. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition of Solutions Sunday. Give me 1 second here, and we'll get started. Ran a little bit behind here. Some technical. Had to reboot, put it like that. And so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Give me 1 second to get everything squared away. I welcome all of you who are joining today. Okay. Give me 5 seconds to reset, and then that way I don't have to look for the edit start. Right, good morning. Welcome to Solutions for Living, Solutions Sunday. I'm so glad you're here this morning. I want to again welcome all of you who are in the Zoom room and those of you who are on the YouTube channel, our sacred space for spiritual alignment and empowerment. I'm Greg Stanton, also known as Asar. I serve as your spiritual strategist, metaphysical guide, and co-architect of transformation. So whether you've been here before for years or just tuned in today, know this: you didn't arrive by accident. You're here because something in you is ready to build. Yes. So let's begin today with a question to stir our souls. But before this, let's step into the sacredness of this space. So right here, right now, wherever you are, take a big breath in, hold it. Now release no longer what serves you. Take another breath in, opening your heart. Hold that breath as you approach today's teaching with curiosity and compassion. Now exhale. Now let's take one more big breath in to awaken our minds. Big breath in, hold the breath, preparing to receive insights that can transform your life. Holding that breath. Now go ahead and exhale all the way down. And just continue to breathe and be present to this moment, this space, this time, this place that we are here together. Now, this morning, if your life was a building, what would it look like? What if your current life was a building? Would it be sturdy? Would it be fragile, spacious, or confined? Is it a mansion of peace, a fixer-upper of confusion, or a divine renovation in progress? So what does your life look like? Go ahead and drop one word in the chat if you could, if you would. What kind of house does your life reflect or feel like right now? Is it something that's being renovated? Is it something that's under construction? Is it something that is you don't even want to even bring somebody inside of? If you feel free, go ahead and drop that in right now. Now let's look at what today's teaching is all about. Today, I hope that you'll walk away understanding the creative power as the mind, as the builder. You're going to identify some beliefs that are shaping your current reality, apply new empowering thoughts, and patterns. So by the end of today's lesson, I want you to be able to walk away with tools to recognize your thoughts as builders and your imagination as a divine architect. I want you to reflect on what's really shaping your life, and then consider how to rewrite the blueprint to build what you truly desire. So we're going to understand the creative power of your thought. We're going to identify the current mental blueprints that you may hold. And also, I want to install an empowering new thought pattern or patterns of thought. So we're going to learn some practical tools to consciously design our reality. That's what we want to move through on this morning. Okay. So it's important that you are grounded in the idea that your mind creates the reality in which you live. So let's kind of ground this story this morning in a personal message. So your outer world is the report card, okay, of your inner architect. There was a time in my own life when I felt stuck. I was doing all the right things, saying the right affirmations, showing up for life, but it kind of felt like nothing was shifting. But one morning during my quiet time, I heard the spirit whisper to me, your outer world is simply the report card of your inner architect. Wow, it was like saying to me, my mind is the builder, and as the chief contractor, I'm looking out at my life that reflects the architect or the blueprints of my life. So I was waiting for life to change on the outside, but the blueprint that I was running, that I was building from, hadn't been updated. And many of us, we have an old blueprint, but we're looking for a new construction. On that particular day, I decided to tear down the blueprint of doubt, and I began to draw in on belief. So let's anchor this idea in the wisdom of our spiritual lineage. That is, mind is the builder. The imagination is only reality. And as a man thinketh, so is he. That's Proverbs 23:7. The imagination is the only reality, comes from the teachings of Neville Goddard. And then I want to introduce to some of you that may not be familiar with a gentleman by the name of Edgar Cayce. He has a book, a little book that was written years ago called The Mind as the Builder. So this morning teaching kind of speaks the same language in different dialects of wisdom. When we look at Edgar Cayce, mind as the builder, he says the physical is the result of the mind. Neville, he expresses that our imagination is everything and that we must learn to operate from within to without. And in Proverbs 23:7, we are reminded that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. In other words, your dominant beliefs are not passive, they are creative. You're not observing life. Notice that you're not an observer strictly, you're building it one thought at a time. So your thoughts are like bricks. So let's check in with what blueprints we've been building from. All of us have blueprints that we've been building from. So let's kind of check in this morning on what blueprint is our minds working from today. So I want to ask you to ask yourself, what belief patterns are still shaping my life? What belief patterns are still shaping my life? Are these beliefs borrowed? Are they broken? Or are they even blessed and aligned? And that's what we're looking for. Some of us are trying to build a new life using blueprints of an old identity. And we can see here in this diagram, we have inherited beliefs, thoughts that were passed down by our family, by the culture, and by traditions that are sacred, and we hold on to them. We have past experiences, which are conclusions that are drawn from our personal history. Those are the things that are stored in our memory, that in our brain. And many of them are there to protect us from hurt, harm, and embarrassment. So we go back to them by default before we move forward. And then we have our future vision, what you believe is possible for your life. What is your future vision? Do you believe that you can change the situation? Do you believe that you can do a deconstruction and a reconstruction? So back to the very first lower left-hand side where it says your present choices. You have some present choices. The thoughts you constantly cultivate are your present choice. But many times we are running an old program, and in running the old program, there's no need for consciousness. Our unconscious conscious is running. And a lot of times the old program represents old blueprints. You know, if you have a home and you go to rebuild it, or you put it back into its original states, and you use those blueprints and you take them down to the village hall and have them to approve the work. A lot of times they'll say, Mr. Stan, you can't use these blueprints. And I'll say, why not? Why not? These are the original blueprints. But they said these blueprints was written 50 years ago, 60 years ago. You got to bring your home up to code. Now, if you're going to do a major reconstruction or a deconstruction, now you're liable to are responsible for bringing it up to code. And so each of us, if we want to live these fabulous lives, we must look at the blueprints that we're running. Are they up to code? Are you using old thoughts to try to bring forth a new experience? You have to ask yourself. So let's go a little deeper this morning. I want to start by exploring 3 spiritual blueprints that we can look at in Scripture. So the power of spiritual demonstration. I like to use spiritual demonstrations, or I pull in a lot of scripture on Sunday mornings, even though this is truly not just this is not a religious conversation, it's a spiritual conversation. And many of you who tune in have a similar religious experience. You come by way of Christianity. So the vast majority of my audience, I usually pull in examples and update them and bring them up to code. So we find that ancient teachings, particularly the biblical teachings and the Husserl, Kemetic thought, demonstrates the mind's power to transform our reality. Yes, your mind has the ability to transform your reality, but you must be willing to work in concert with it. Metaphysical principles. Every story that we're going to go into this morning, I'm going to reveal 3 different stories. They reveal how consciousness creates experiences. And I want to bring it up to date with a modern twist on it. So let's jump into that this morning. Let's first start with the example of Jesus and the fig tree. Now, when we're talking about belief that produces a swift result. We see that Jesus is speaking to a fig tree and it withers by morning. And that's not just divine drama. It's a metaphysical principle. You know the story. He passed by the fig tree. He went to the fig tree because it represented which should be providing provision. But when he got there, the tree was not. It had leaves, but it had not brought forth fruit. And many of us are like that in many ways. We look like it, but we don't act like it. We're not producing. In the old church, I would say you look like a Christian, walk like a Christian, but you don't talk like a Christian, like a Christian. You don't express. And the same thing in New Thought. Same thing for those of us who align ourselves with what we call a enlightened approach, a woke approach to life. Yet we find ourselves just being cerebral. That is, we're just going on, information, but we have not taken that information to transformation. So Jesus spoke to a fig tree. It withered from its roots. And we find the principle here was our consciousness directs energy to create a physical change. Can you resonate with that? Can you agree with that? That your consciousness directs energy to create the physical change. Your awareness, you got to understand that words backed by belief are immediate creative forces. They have a creative impact. So this story in itself reminds us, if something in your life isn't bearing fruit, stop feeding it energy. That's why Jesus cursed it. So you want to speak to it. Sometimes you want to just release it. If it's not producing after its kind, its intended purpose, step away from it, release it. Spiritual delay is not divine. Now, spiritual delay, in the spiritual realm, there's no delay. Everything is now. When we operate in a spiritual worldview and we temper it or filter it through a physical worldview, you abort everything that that spiritual worldview can do for you. So we want to begin to really step away from living in two worlds. We want to live in two worlds, but operate from one world. We want to operate from the spiritual construct. So this is a great example of how your words can bring something to an end, and it also can create space for something new. So I like that example of the fig tree story. Here's another story, and you can choose which one that you resonate with on this morning as you go into this upcoming week. The story of Joshua and Jericho. We know that this is a story that illustrates divine vibration. They were given instructions. Joshua was instructed to march in silence for 7 days. Okay. And it wasn't about a military strategy, it was about a spiritual persistence. It was about bringing everybody into the same resonance, into the same frequency. And on the seventh day, when they marched around 7 times, it brought down the walls. I'm reminded of a story. Early in taking over the pastorate of the Peace Church of Bellwood, which was a United Church of Christ, a place that I actually used to rent space from them. And ultimately, after a couple of years, they requested that I come in and become the pastor. And I told them I would do it, but I operate from a different construct. And ultimately, they found out when the church began to grow, there began to be some concern about the makeup of the church, that the new church was outnumbering those who were from the old church. And so there was a faction inside that decided that they wanted to vote me out on an upcoming Sunday. Not little do they know, they got back to me, and the Spirit led me to conduct a Jericho march. So for 7 days, we marched around the church in silence. I remember all the kids were little, and they got into it too. So we marched around the church. We met every day at a certain time, and we marched around. The first day we marched around one time. Second day we marched around one time. But on the seventh day, which was that day of the event, while I was preaching, they were outside marching around the church silently. So I was preaching to the 9 o'clock service, and that was made up of mostly the original members, which were average age of probably 80 something. They were Germans. They resonated with what I was doing, but there was a small faction that had some issues. And so while they're sitting there, I could see them looking out the window, and they could see this crowd walking around the church silently, and they became somewhat concerned. But then by the time I finished my message, they had walked around 7 times. They had quietly come into the social hall, and then at the end of the message, we all went to the social hall because it was that Sunday we have the church meeting. Little did they knew I knew what was going on. Long story being short, cut short, I had an attorney there to represent me and represent the contract, or not necessarily my contract, but to represent what the church bylaws were. And along of it, they were so taken back that with the attorney being there, that after that day, the walls came just tumbling down. Not too long after that, the leadership of the church decided that they were going to move, and that they just turned the keys over, and they turned over the entire church to us. With there was no mortgage or anything on the church. It was a beautiful church, and even to this day, that church still sits there. And while I was home a couple weeks ago, and I drove by, and it's been almost 20 years since I left that ministry, and that we actually sold that building, and it's been sitting dormant for 20 years. And it's just really kind of like an eyesore, big, beautiful church sitting there taking up the whole block. But the point I'm making, it was about a divine vibration, a divine frequency. Joshua was instructed to march in silence for 7 days. And again, it wasn't about a military strategy, it was a spiritual persistence. The walls don't fall through noise. That's one of the things you should come away with that. They fall through repetition. They fall through belief. They fall through a frequency match, aligning with your divine design, aligning with your expectation. This brings down the wall. You may say, what walls? It could be generational, it could be psychological, it could be systematic walls. Are you ready to walk down the walls, the things that are getting in the way of you experiencing the life you desire, of you being able to build? You might have something in the way, and you want to get that out of the way. You do it in silence. So your spiritual practice is your demolition crew. Okay, you don't always have to be making noise. You don't always have to be doing what the world does to change some things. Now, the third one I want to look at this morning has to do. So before we go away from Joshua, you got the divine vibration, the sound that carried the creative force of consciousness. You had a collective consciousness. That was Joshua led a unified mental field of individuals who were focused on one outcome. If we can walk together, if we can agree, we can get some things done. When I look at what is going on, I live here in St. Louis, and recently the mayor, an African American female, was unseated. She was the incumbent. She was unseated by someone else, and and now I could see it. The community could not come together, could not resonate, come into the same frequency, and do it frequently enough that it made a difference. So she was unset. Then you got to understand material manifestation. The walls fell down, okay, or fell as consciousness reshaped the physical reality. So your thinking can change your reality. That's what I want you to walk away with when you look at the story of Joshua and Jericho from here on out. I want you to focus on the divine vibration that brought those walls down. Now, here's another story. We're in that season where everybody's about to celebrate the Passover, and they're going into the religious story about Jesus being crucified, was in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights, then he rose. So some people still resonate with that story. Some of you have come into the realization that this same story is a retelling of the story of the Assyrian drama when he was entombed, and then ultimately all his pieces were cut up into 14 pieces and distributed across the world, and how Aset and Haru found all the pieces. You know the story, but it's about resurrection. So here, when we talk about Jesus, a story that you're familiar with, it's important that you understand it's never too late to believe again. Okay, that's critical. That it's never too late to reformat your beliefs and to believe again. Jesus shows up late here, and he still calls Lazarus forth. Why? Because spirit is not bound by time. Physical body is bound by time, but spirit triumphs time. So this blueprint here says, even if others have counted it out, your belief can resurrect what is buried inside of you. So you got to have a command, and the command started with Jesus declare, Lazarus. Do you see something there? Lazarus is a inside of Lazarus. You see Osiris. He says, come forth. So there's the command that must be stated. Then we see the transfer, divine life force travel through focused intention. Here we see Jesus has a focus and deliberate intention, and it ends in a manifestation. We see a life that is returned, demonstrating the mind's power over physical conditions, sickness and disease, uh, diagnosis, prognosis. If we really begin to walk inside of our spiritual practices and move beyond just theories, we'll understand that the situation that you may be going through is actually a bridge of incident that allows you to now take what you know in your mind or what you've learned and you put it to practice. And that's why sometimes when things manifest in your life, it's not because you've done anything wrong, but it's an excellent opportunity. You don't have to speak life if there is life. You speak life where there's death. You don't have to speak wholeness unless something has broken. So when you have less than perfect situations or when you have contrast showing up in your life, it's a bridge of incident. It's an opportunity for you to exercise your belief. So if your belief is based on Western medicine, you exercise that. But then I ask, how's that working for you? But if your belief system, if you're taking on a new belief system, is an opportunity for you to exercise that. So Jesus shows up late and he still calls Lazarus forth. Why? Because spirit is not bound by time, remember? So this blueprint says to us, even if others have counted us out, your belief can resurrect life. That's why you got to be careful when you get caught in group narratives. Okay, so it's too late is a human construct, not a spiritual one. Let me say that again. Oh, too late, unquote, is a human construct, not a spiritual one. Your command, that is, come forth, is still valid. Now, let's connect this science. Yes, it's science to the reality of the conversation today. There's something that's known as the block universe theory. You know, we live in past, present, future tenses, but little few of us really realize that the past, the present, and the future all exist now. Block universe theory is physics, in physics proposes that time is not linear. Even though we say time is past, what has happened, what is happening, and what we hope to happen. And that's how we live. But in block universe theory, it believes that all of it is happening simultaneously. Does it sound familiar to you? Remember, Neville taught us that the Bible confirms this. It says that, it already exists. Comedic science predated this. So we create from the unknown, from the unseen to the seen. Every possibility that can ever roll out in your life already exists. You just have to collapse. Remember, we talked about collapsing the field. And we collapse the field, or we bring the thing desired into fruition based on the frequency, how frequently we may affirm it, how we may imagine it. So when you're imagining something, it's raising your vibrational frequency to match that thing, and it collapses it out of the invisible, and it brings it into the visible. That's important. So you got to understand, you don't wait for change. Remember, I talked about it last week or a couple weeks ago. You align with change. Stop waiting and spend more time aligning. Now, let's bring all of this into focus with some declarations this morning. Before we install the declarations, let's look at the new blueprint. It starts with being aware. It is really important that you have a level of awareness. Okay. Are you aware of what is going on around, recognizing the limiting thoughts that you have, the patterns that no longer serve you. So you have to look at it. A lot of times we want to do an upgrade in our property or in our homes because it no longer serves us. It no longer gives us the same satisfaction. And you want to see something different. And sometimes you all want to be something different. And it starts with recognizing the limiting thoughts, the blueprints that you had that created what you have. And if you want something different, you can't take the same blueprint. So you got to release. You got to ask yourself, what must I release? What must I let go of? What old blueprints? And you release them with gratitude for the time and the appropriateness that they once held. So everything that we're doing today, every decision that we make today, we've made it because at the time of the making of the decision, that was the best decision to be made. And it probably was a good decision. So sometimes we outgrow things, we outgrow people, we outgrow situations, and you have to upgrade yourself. I tend to make sure that I stay current. This year, this is a year of 9. This is a year of letting go. This is a year of endings. So a lot of things are ending for me. And some of the things that are ending are not necessarily because they are not pleasant, but it's not. They're getting out in the way of the new construction. So sometimes once you are aware, must be willing to let go. Let go of old things, old places, old people. You got to ask yourself, does this what I'm doing today serve my highest and good today? It may have served you in times gone by. And then you have to choose. You have to select empowering new beliefs that align with your desires. And sometimes you need to write them down. What are your new beliefs? Because the old beliefs are established and they don't want to be unset by the new beliefs. But you got to continue to hold them. And by holding them, it unseats the old beliefs. So we want to install. So we are aware, we have a level of awareness. We have to release. We'll find out what we must release. We choose to select an empowering belief system, codes, and then we install. We firmly place new thought patterns through consistent practice. You don't force it. You integrate it. You align with them. So that's the blueprint. That's the circle. Awareness, release, choose, and install. Now, let's look at some basic affirmations that we can make. First one is divine identity. So wherever you are this morning, I want you to affirm with me the following. I'll state it once, and then we'll affirm it twice together, if you will. I am the divine architect of my life. I am the divine architect of my life. I am the divine architect of my life. You are not God out there, but you are. He's given you dominion. He's given you charge over everything in the earth, and you are made of the earth. So you are the divine architect. You are the author and the finisher of your faith. Second, creative power. I'll state it once. We'll affirm it together twice. My thoughts are blueprints. My beliefs are bricks. My thoughts are blueprints. My beliefs are bricks. My thoughts are blueprints. My beliefs are bricks. A wise man builds his house brick by brick. The scripture says, a wise woman builds her house brick by brick, but many foolish women will tear them down by the words she speaks. So we got to understand our thoughts, our words we speak are the bricks that create the castles that we desire to live inside of. Foundationally, I'll state it once and we'll affirm it together twice. My imagination lays the foundation. Again, my imagination lays the foundation. My imagination lays the foundation. So the seed bed from which anything comes forth is the imaginative state. So we have to use our imaginations. We have to see it as already done. We have to experience it as it is, not as it will be. And then lastly, our fourth affirmation is has to do with purpose. I'll state it once and we'll affirm it together twice. I build with power and purpose. Don't be lazy. Stay with me. Let's try that again. I build with power and purpose. I build with power and purpose. I build with power and purpose. Now, you can write those things down. And throughout the week, you can implement them. You can state them. You're raising your vibrational frequency. Okay? While you are aligning, remember, you're not waiting. These are some of the things that you can affirm. You build with power and purpose. Deliberate, intentional intentions. That's really important that you do that. Now, again, remember, I want you to move from waiting to aligning. Waiting is a trap. It puts you it puts your creative power on hold for that rainy day, for that next day. The future is now. It never comes. It's always now. You have to learn to live your future, live your past in your present. Your building stays incomplete while you're waiting because tomorrow never comes. The alignment is the solution. Alignment activates your creative power right now. Your building takes shape right now. Now, you also should surround yourself with a community of individuals who think like you, who build like you, who walk like you, who talk like you, don't necessarily have to look like you, but they resonate with the same frequency as you. So we got to have community intentions, such as we build only with beliefs that serve us. We build only with beliefs that serves our highest and greatest good. That's important. That's important. So before we go into that, let me take us into a affirming prayer. So right where you are, I'm going to ask that you just close your eyes and take a breath. Bring yourself present to here, coming out your head, being present to right now, right here, as I affirm this prayer entitled, I build with divine mind. Infinite Spirit, architect of all creation, source of every sacred design, we pause in this moment to honor you, not as a distant power, but as a divine intelligence that breathes within us. We recognize you not only as creator, but as the blueprint embedded within our being. You have given us the gift of mind, the tool to think, imagine, and build. And today we affirm our mind is the builder, and we now build with purpose. We release the false beliefs that our lives are random, that our conditions are permanent, or that we must wait for something outside of us to bring change. This morning, we acknowledge that this truth, our thoughts shape the walls we live within, and our beliefs lay the foundations for what shall rise. What we accept as true becomes the bricks. What we imagine as possible becomes the design. What we hold in feeling becomes form. Let every faulty blueprint now be cleared. Those that are etched by trauma, shame, fear, or inherited limitations. We no longer build with bricks of regret or beams of doubt. We cast aside scaffoldings of survival and step boldly into our role as conscious creators. Yes, today we embrace our sacred responsibility. We activate the divine architect within. We build lives of peace, wholeness, and joy, not in theory, but in form. We speak and mountains move. We believe and walls fall. We imagine and resurrection occurs. Yes, Yeshua called Lazarus to rise. So today, so do we also call forth our dormant potential. Just as Joshua marched with unwavering faith, we too walk in belief that the unseen will manifest. Just as the fig tree responded to spiritual authority, so do our world respond to our word. Let this be the moment right here, right now, where our old structure crumbles and divine design takes over. Let every cell in our bodies now respond to the vibration of truth that I am a builder of light. We are builders of light. I am an architect of love. We are architects of love. I am a designer of destiny. We are designers of destiny. We bless our thoughts and sanctify our imagination. We no longer misuse the mind by repeating lack or replaying fear. We now use it as it was intended to create heaven. Yes, heaven, right here on earth. Bless every soul here under the sound of my voice with clarity of mind, strength of spirit, and courage to rebuild from divine intention. We give thanks for this sacred gift of consciousness. We give thanks that is already done in the realm of spirit. We give thanks that the blueprint is unfolding with every aligned thought, word, and action. And so we build, and so we believe, and so it is. Amen. Ashe. And so it is. Thank you for joining us this morning. I hope something was said inside of that prayer that was uplifting, inspiring, and that it moves you at the cellular level. Join us each and every Sunday out here at 9 a.m. If you need to reach me, you can reach me at Greg at Soulutions for Living, or you can dial me in at 708-368-1070, 708-368-1076. Okay, that's how you can reach me. Every week we have things going on here. Your spiritual weekly practice, if you're on this call, you're going to get the playback. So you can listen to it again, and there will be an assignment associated with it. So I want you all to remember, you are not merely discovering who you are actively deciding who you are. Build a life consciously. If this teaching has been a blessing, if the offerings that we offer throughout the week has been a blessing to you, and you desire to be a blessing to Soulutions for Living, you can do that by way of Cash App or PayPal. You can use the number 708-368-1076, and then you could send whatever is on your heart. So I thank all of you who have, throughout the week, perhaps, dropped in something in on the ministry or on the work, or someone who's going to do it today. So come on back. All right, we're going to prepare ourselves to go into the green room. But before I do that, let me come back forward. All right, good morning. I see we have a few people here in the Zoom room, and some on the actual YouTube channel. I did not send out the link this morning. You should have gotten it an hour before. And so I'm trying to getting you accustomed to knowing where the link is, saving the link so you can come back to it. I shouldn't have to always come back and spend time sending out that email to remind everybody. So as I look here in the YouTube channel, I see we have a few people there. I see Mom, she's not on Zoom, but she's found it out here. Ray, Queen Mother, good morning to you. There was if you look 1 hour back, it comes out automatically, and then sometimes I will send it out. I will do it manually 15 minutes or 30 minutes before. I didn't do that this morning. So again, you can always look in your emails if you're in the list an hour before you get it. But then I have this way also. So I'm glad you were able to persevere and make it out here. Queen Mother says she's under construction. Yes, I'm doing some a rebuild, a tear down and a total rebuild. Okay. We live in two worlds. That is exactly true. We live, it says we are in this world, but not of this world, because we are from another world, and we've never left that world. We'll always realign more so with that world. So when we pass away physically, all we're doing is realigning totally. We're not going anywhere that we should have already been every day. Too many of us live like we have left some place. We have vacated heaven and we are living in the earth. No, we haven't vacated heaven. We have extended from heaven and come into this place. God is omnipresent. You're omnipresent when you really walk as a spiritual being. Good, good, good. All right, and I see somebody over here on Samsung. I don't know who that is. If you want to drop your name in, feel free to do that. If you got any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. You can put them right here in the YouTube channel. If you have questions, we welcome those questions. If nobody has questions, we're going to move on to experience this day and all that it holds. I will clean this up and get it back out to you sometime today so you can revisit it. All right, tell somebody about us. Bring somebody with you next week. If you're free on this week, join me on Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6:15 for Spill the Beans. It's our morning reflections. You'll love it. If you want to get a taste of it, you can go to the website and you can go over to that is Soulutions, Soulutions for living.com. And you go over to the tab that says blogs, and you can see some of the Spill the Bean presentations right there. All right, that's all I have. It's been a pleasure to serve you this morning. You have a wonderful day, and I'll see you somewhere around the universe. Know this, that something serendipitous is chasing you down. Have a wonderful day.